All right, cool. So today we're going to be going over the main concept of UX. So we'll be talking about what is UX, why experience matters, why user experience matters, and why you should learn it, why you should consider it every time you're building a new product or building a new service. We're gonna slightly go over the UX design process, and we're gonna finish with a sneak peek into UX methods that we're gonna be discussing over the next few months in this program. So as you may know, we're gonna be running sessions weekly. It's gonna be technical sessions and business sessions, and during the business sessions, we're gonna be going over different concepts and techniques and methods in UX design. So, what is user experience, right? If you go to Wikipedia and you search for user experience, what does it say? It says user experience includes all the user's emotions, beliefs, preferences, perceptions, physical and psychological responses, behaviors, and accomplishments that occur before, during, and after the use of a product, system, or service. Now that's quite academic, right? That's the sort of definition you find in one of the lectures here. But how do we make it easier to digest? We can summarize all of that by saying user experience is what it feels to use a product, system, or service. User experience design is not just about usability. User experience design is about what it feels to be using this product or service. It's not about functionality, it's not about how to do A, B, and C, but rather, how does it feel while you're doing A, B, and C? So that's the main concept of user experience design. User experience design is a research-based discipline that helps you identify problems and solve them, and not just that, but also generate positive emotions while doing so. So, when you're using any software, right? And when we're talking about feelings now, because feelings are the most important thing that you should be focusing on while you're designing your software. The things that you want to have your users feel are things like, I feel in control, right? How many times you use an app or website and you feel, you don't really know what's going on, right? Some things that are not quite understandable are appearing, you don't feel like you're in control. So, I feel in control. I feel confident. I feel smart. I trust this product. These are the sort of emotions and feelings you want to generate every time a user uses your product or your service. And you might say, is it really that important? But when you look at the opposite of these feelings, I don't feel in control. I don't trust this product or service. I don't feel confident about this company, this website, this app, this whatever. And I don't think it will do what I want it to do. Now that's everything that we don't want our users to feel. And every time you build a software, a website, or an app, or anything basically, you need to take this into consideration. So UX, as I said, is not just about solving problems, right? We're always trying to solve problems whenever we come up with an app idea, a website, whatever you're trying to build, but it's actually also about generating the positive emotions while doing so. So, how do you usually define an experience, right? So, let's say you're using an app, okay? How do you usually define it? What is your expectations, or what's the outcome that you're trying to achieve every time you're using an app, software, or any product? What's the thing that you're trying to look for? Anyone would like to answer? Usually, how would you define an experience that is successful? You just entered an app, you use it, and then you exit the app. How would you define a successful experience?
You sort of intuitively know where everything is because it's quite standardized.
Okay, that's a great one. So you enter this app with a goal, right? You had a goal in mind, you had a problem, possibly, and you wanted to solve it. So how do you really evaluate your experience with the product or service? So first of all, each product or service needs to have a value. Whether it's an app, software, a website, product, whatever, it needs to have a very specific value. Does this product give me value, right? Because if it doesn't give me value, why would I use it? It's common sense, right? Second thing, does this product work? Functionality. Because you might find an app that's pretty, maybe not as pretty as this presentation, but it will not work. Would you use it? Of course not. So it needs to have value, and it needs to be functional, and it needs to be useful. How easy is the app? Am I able to find everything I'm looking for easily, or is it giving me a hard time? And the fourth point, and it's definitely last but not least, the general impression. Is it pleasant to use? And that's mainly what we're going to be focusing on today. How can you give your users pleasant experiences, right? So let's talk about what makes a great product, right? But before we talk about what makes a great product, let's talk about why experience matters. Why are we trying to build unique customer experiences? Look at everything around you here. Everything has been designed, right? Everything. And not just here, when you go back home, when you go out, everything has been designed by someone. The mobile phone that you're using, the bed you're sleeping on, it has been designed by someone. There's nothing that has been done by accident. So UX design is a very fulfilling and exciting career and discipline, because since everything is designed, you want to give custom and successful and positive experiences to your users, because everything is truly designed, but not every experience is positive. So you want to focus on giving positive experiences to your users. And how will you do that? Like, what makes a great product? What makes a great product that gives positive experiences to their customers and users? So you can define it with these three things: functional design, aesthetic design, and experience design. Now, the first two are quite crystal clear, right? Functional design is basically, does this product work? So taking this car as an example, when you're talking about functionality, you're talking about engineering, does this thing work? In a car, what's the horsepower? How long does it take to go from 1 to 60, right? The transmission, everything like that, what makes a car, the functionality. When we're talking about aesthetic design, we're talking about how visually appealing is it, right? How beautiful is it from the outside? And to be honest, the first two are what 99% of people actually focus on. How can I make this website slash app slash software slash whatever beautiful and functional? But the third one that is often overlooked is experience design. How does it feel to drive this car, right? Mercedes, of course, is one of the leading in the car industry. When we're talking about what's your experience driving a Mercedes car? We're talking about how does it feel sitting in the driving seat? How does it feel? Or how does the engine sound, right? How smooth are the driving control buttons? How flexible is the chair while you're moving it? How adjustable or how responsive is the steering wheel? I can name tens and tens and tens of things that can define your experience, but that's exactly what experience design is. So Mercedes, basically, what made it quite successful is the attention to details. And details are not random. People might think that details are just there by coincidence, but what makes a great product or service are details. I remember a couple of months ago, I went to Wimbledon, and who knows Wimbledon, the tennis championship? Yeah? Okay, cool. So Wimbledon is one of the oldest tennis championships. And I remember how the very first thing I noticed when I entered, Wimbledon has these two colors, green and purple. On their branding, the logo, everything has these two colors. The first thing that I've noticed once I entered is how the trees, bushes, and everything, they're all colored, and they have these green and purple colors amongst them. And these kind of details, like you might think they're not really noticeable for people, but they actually make the experience. So details deliver the experience, and details don't happen by accident. They are intentional. You actually put that detail for a reason. You actually put that detail for a purpose. And details aren't left until the end. So going back to Mercedes, that's a very interesting fact that I recently actually heard about. Mercedes they actually don't leave the kind of experiences that you might think the people in the factory do until the end. So they actually, during the research phase, they work on details like how does it feel to sit in the driver's seat, how smooth are the buttons, these kind of things. The sound that the engine makes. These kind of things, they're actually defined and they are determined before the production of the car is actually set in the factory. So it's not like Mercedes, they don't trust their engineers in the factory, but they know that these kind of things, these details, they're huge and they will have a massive emotional reaction. So they can't just leave it to the engineers to do it randomly. They need to have a research phase to come up with outcomes and then apply it in their design and development. Also, details aren't there for fun. I mean, that's self-evident. And details solve problems. If your details aren't solving problems, they're just making your software product more complicated. So UX overall is a research-based discipline. And if you were ever asked what UX is in an interview, an excellent answer would be UX is a research-based discipline. Because most people, when they think of user experience design, they think of prototyping and just like wireframes and designing software on paper, but that comes way, way, way later. If you don't have enough data gathered by the right people, your software won't be built on the right standards. So, why experience matters again? It's quite essential to know that people ignore design that ignores people. It's a very interesting quote, and that sums up the whole thing, right? Let's play a little game. A guessing game, pretty much. So, what's the percentage of customers that will leave a brand they love after just one bad experience? Who would like to guess? Just throw in 60%. Okay. Who thinks it's higher? Say
80-something.
80-something. Okay. 32%. I mean, you might think 32 is not a lot. It's actually a lot. 32% of people would leave a brand they love. For example, you might be a huge fan of a certain brand. If you have a bad experience with them, 32% of the people, they will leave it. And that's a lot. Only X% of companies are currently conducting any user experience testing. How many companies do you think are conducting any kind of user experience testing at the moment? A lot or not a lot?
I guess not many.
Not many? 40? I think 40? 30? 35. And this number is growing, by the way, because people are realizing how important user experience design is, how important it is to focus on these kind of details, and how important it is to gather information before you start, and data before you start with the research, design, and development. ESPN. ESPN, who knows ESPN? Cool. So ESPN's revenue increased by X% after a homepage UX redesign. Just a homepage redesign. They basically did not change the visual appearance of the homepage. They changed the location of the buttons, the location of the elements. They changed how things are structured on the homepage. X%, what do you think?
70 to 80.
70 to 80, okay, you're 30, okay. 35%, that was close. 35%, that's a lot. So, by now you can tell how important UX design is. So, let's give a very interesting example here. So, these are the functional designs and plans for some of the features in BlackBerry 10, which is a very old smartphone. It's actually the first touchscreen smartphone by BlackBerry. It was released early 2013. And this phone, when it comes to functional design, top-notch. At that time, it was offering the BlackBerry Hub, the mailing service, different kind of programs that were actually in a touchscreen smartphone for the first time. Design-wise, it was beautiful compared to what was there in 2013. And actually, when this was released, iPhone had iOS X, iOS 6 actually. I wish they had iPhone X. iOS 6, the ugly one before the flat design. So comparing this design with the iOS 6 design, this was really nice. So they are keeping, actually, they're succeeding quite well with the functional and the aesthetic design. But what went wrong? The experience design, however, was not great. Let's watch a very short video of people using the BlackBerry 10 for the first time.
Hey, Natasha with Mashable. I hold in my hand the first BlackBerry 10 smartphone. This is the phone that RIB is betting its future on. You'll notice there's no home button on this. You actually unlock the phone by sliding up like that. You navigate in some creative ways. There's a screen here where if you go to the left, you get your whole inbox, including emails, BlackBerry messages, Twitter notifications, that kind of thing. The thing is, it's all gesture-based, so you have to sort of go up, down, slide up to minimize apps. The thing, it's very different from other smartphones of today, and we're going to go to see if anyone can actually figure this out on the first try with no instruction. Okay, try unlocking the phone.
How do I turn it on? Oh, let's see. Oh, arrows. Okay. Yeah, I think it's unlocked.
Yeah, I'm trying to swipe up. Okay. I think I unlocked it like an Android phone.
Unlock the phone. Got it? Not unlocked.
Is this part of this thing gonna be difficult? Got it.
Now, try to find your email.
Find my email. My email or your email?
Find your email.
Any email. I'm assuming this is email. BlackBerry Hub. It's not. Found Gmail. Hotmail. Pete, you still have a Hotmail account?
Can you go back to the home screen?
I don't know how to go back to the home screen.
Let's see. That takes me to bookmarks. Can I get back to the home screen? Frustrating to get back to the home screen.
Now launch an app.
Any app at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm launching Twitter.
There are no buttons in this thing, so
This is all foreign to me.
I feel like I'm in a weird place. Oh,
So that was a bunch of first-time users of BlackBerry 10. Gotta say, Rich created a pretty cool phone here. Some of the functions, like that consolidated inbox with all your email and BlackBerry messages, are actually pretty cool. Good luck finding them on the first try. We'll see what happens. It has some cool stuff going for it, but it's a little confusing. That's BlackBerry 10. Be passionate about it.
But it's worth trying.
So, what did you notice from this video? The design was great, it had a lot of features, but what was the problem? The phone was terrible. It was a flop, right? It's just there. The phone was a flop. BlackBerry 10 was a product that was supposed to not just save BlackBerry, but to actually make it the leading in the phone market. However, it was the phone that was the reason that BlackBerry was bankrupt and they exited the phone market for good. BlackBerry had tons and tons and tons of unsold stock of BlackBerry 10 that they couldn't function anymore. They couldn't run, so they had to close the company. So what do we learn from this experience? The function design was great, the asset design was great. However, they did not put a home button in their phone. They thought that they're being creative, they're being innovative. But they replaced the home button with different kind of gestures and swipes that made absolutely no sense for users. And the simplest tasks, as going to your contact or sending a message, it was quite confusing and it required different kind of swipes and gestures, which made absolutely no sense for everyone, and the phone did not succeed.
It's kind of weird because some of the gestures are what iPhone now has.
True, but back in 2013, it was quite new, and that's the importance of the user experience design. Today, actually in a bit, we're going to be going over some user experience design research methods that you can use to avoid such things from happening. Because you will need to understand the current understanding of users, right? You don't try to reinvent the wheel, but you see what's happening at the moment, what's working for people, and just try to make it slightly better. So what are the main two key points out of this experience? Great products need all three types of design. You can have the best functional app ever. It's beautiful, it's elegant, but if it does not consider the user experience, it will fail, right? And negative emotions have a multiplier effect. So these people that you've seen, they were laughing, they were saying, oh, I don't know how to use it, they were lighthearted. However, if you are the person who spent a couple of £100 on that phone, and you went back home, or you had this contract with O2 for 12 months, and you didn't know how to turn it on, or how to send an email, I'm pretty sure you will not be happy. And you will not be laughing about it, right? And you will not care how beautiful the phone is. And you will not care how many apps you have on your phone. If you don't know how to use it, So, negative emotions have multiplier effect. If your user experience design is not great, no matter how beautiful is your UI, no matter how good is your software coded, it won't matter. So we discussed two examples, two leading large companies with a lot of money, huge revenue. One of them, they invested it in the right way for their users to be actually feeling smart, confident, comfortable, and so on. The other company made it feel like they're stupid. They don't know how to use a smartphone. And now, with tens and tens and tens of companies from all over the globe, just moving towards the third industrial revolution, all of these companies and more, they understood that software is important. and they understood that that user experience is essential to stay in the market. And they are setting the bar high for all of the companies, for all of the software, to actually meet these expectations and these standards. So as a UX designer, you have, on a high level, you have two main objectives: product integrity and product desirability. Let's start really quick with product integrity. So in every product, or in every company, there are different teams, right? You have the marketing, you have the support, you have the sales, operations, legal, executives, and so on. In every single company, try to imagine with me how a meeting would go when they're trying to launch a new product or a service. They start discussing, and they send one representative, for example, out of each department, and each one of them will start feeding their requirements. The marketing people will start saying, oh, we need this feature because it will help us with marketing. The legal people, they will say, oh, how about this one? Because this will make us secure, for example, high price for our users. The sales department will start offering more and more features that they want. So each one of them will just start actually feeding their requirements. None of them, they are actually aware of what the user wants. They're just looking from their own tiny little piece of the puzzle. And that's the main reason why most products fail. Actually, I read it the other day. It was 80% of either software or products fail because of usability. So Halo, anyone heard of Halo before? So Halo is a mobile app. It's like Uber. It runs mainly in Ireland. It recently got renamed to, I believe it was Easy Taxi. And the main purpose of the app is to request a car, right? Just like Uber. However, the app was quite popular for how simple, straightforward, and direct it is. You just simply open the app, and then you just request a car right away. Can you play the, one sec. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So as you can see, you open the app, and there are no options. You don't have anything else apart from that big button that you click on to request a car right now, wherever you are, right? That's it. And you might think, that's bad. But honestly, that's what made the app really successful. You couldn't order a taxi for some other time, so you can't really schedule a taxi like Uber for next morning if you're going to the airport. You couldn't order a taxi for somewhere else. So if you had a friend that's stuck somewhere, or if you're ordering a taxi for your boyfriend or girlfriend, you couldn't do that, right? And you couldn't order more than one taxi at a time. And all of these things, for any person who's looking at Halo, not knowing its story and its success, they will say, what kind of an app is it? However, that's the only reason why it was successful. It was just one button and off you go. So having said that, features are dangerous, right? Every time you want to add a feature, you need to think twice, because features are basically one more thing that the user has to worry about. So if your features are not based on research, if your features are not based on clear requirements, they shouldn't be there. So let's pretend that the Halo team were not working in Agile, they were not applying UX in the research. I would imagine their stakeholder meeting. Okay, we want a tax request app. What do we want? We want an option to have the user select what time do you want your taxi. How about how many taxis do you need? What if you give them the option, where would the taxi pick you up? Do you want to change your location? Also, how about you agree to our terms and conditions before you order? just more and more features. And that's not bad. You can see like Uber does have all of these features. But this particular app, they knew that their selling point was just how easy and straightforward it is, and that's why it succeeded. The second part is product desirability, right? The first one is product integrity, and as a UX designer, you're not just representing the user, but you're representing the integrity of the product every time you are gathering requirements, every time you're discussing the app with the team, and so on. So it's quite important to make sure that the app integrity is safe at all times. So when we're talking about product desirability, and this is quite important because product desirability is one of these things that's often overlooked, right? The first thing that you need to consider when you're starting a business or when you're creating a product or offering a service, is it viable? And viability means, in most times, does it make money? Or does it save money, right? It can have other meanings, but mainly in business, does it make money? Is it successful? So we have viability, we have feasibility. So we have this idea for a product or a service or whatever. It makes us money or it saves us money, and we need to ask ourselves then, is it feasible, right? Can we build it? Is it doable? Is it buildable? If we don't know how to do it, can we hire someone else? And if we're hiring someone else, is it viable for us, right? Is it gonna cost us less than what we're gonna actually gain later on? And the third one is desirability, right? And most companies, they focus on the first two things and they completely ignore the third because they either lack the experience, the skills, the tools, or they just don't know how to identify a desirable product. So let's take this example. Who knows the jukebox? Yeah? So the Artist Jukebox 5000 was released in December 2000, and it was the very first portable MP3 player. And it was brilliant, right? You can carry your music wherever you go. What else can you ask for? So it was great, and it was doing great success. Even the company found out a way how to distribute a lot of quantity with a minimal price. So when it comes to viability, they achieved that. When it comes to so just compare viability, when it comes to feasibility, they actually were able to have all of these people interested in their product, and they were able to produce it to all of these people. But they missed something that's quite important and essential, which is desirability. So 10 months later, in October 2001, the first ever Apple iPod was released. Just 10 months after. And they were actually generating all the sales the first 10 months. The Apple iPod was just small, it was beautiful, it was minimalist, and it was easy to use. It had this scrolling wheel that you were able to go through all of your songs within a couple of seconds. If you want to reach song number 35, you were able to do that within a couple of seconds. On the other hand, the jukebox was big. It was not really that beautiful. And at that point, when it was first released, people did not really care, right? But they did not have anything else to compare it with. But then when the Apple iPod was released, they started seeing how even it's heavier, it's slower, and the killer was that it's not plug and play. The Apple iPod, you were able to plug it to your PC and copy music. For the jukebox, you had to go to the company's website, download some drivers, and that's the regular experience. So comparing both products, it was a game changer than your iPod. So this product was out of the market in no time. So you can tell now how experience really plays in the success of products and services. So how do you identify desirability? And that's the key thing here. So first of all, you have to ask yourself, what problem am I solving with this product? Am I solving a problem? If not, then you shouldn't really think about watching it at all. Are you solving a problem? If yes, is your product solving it? And if yes, I'm struggling with the script today. Is the experience great? Because you can be solving a problem, right? But are the people who are using your product to solve their problem enjoying the experience? Because you might find products that are beautiful, functional, but people don't feel comfortable using them, or they don't enjoy the process of using that product, service, or product, or whatever. So UX is a process, and process is never a very nice word to digest. Nobody likes processes, right? But UX is really nothing but a process, a continuous one, right? So let's take this standard design process as an example. Okay. Cool. So that's a very standard design process. So we start with research, then we go to design, then we go to building the product and testing. So let's take it backwards. Before you build a product, before you release a product, you need to test it, right? Are the features working? Are they safe to use? If you're building some electronic device, is it going to explode if someone uses it? Or not? If you test it, before you test it, of course, you have to build it. And that's self-evident, of course. And before you build it, if you're smart, you will design it. For all the things to be aligned, for everyone to know what's going on, and for you to actually validate your ideas. And before that, you have to do some sort of research to actually make sure that you know what you're doing, you know why you're building the product, and you know that the problems you're trying to solve are worthwhile, and there are enough people that will want to have this problem solved. However, in the real world, and in the UX world, this process is slightly changed. So you start with research. You research your problems. You research what kind of users you're trying to reach. You research different kind of ways to offer your solution. And then once you do that, you'll need to define it, right? You'll need to validate what you came up with from the research phase. And once you do that, you'll need to design your software or your product, let's say. And designing your product is usually connected with producing a prototype. A prototype you can test with your users. You can show them, again, product, software, website. This seriously applies to everything that you're ever going to build because user experience is everywhere. And once you produce your prototype, you want to validate it. If it's good, off you go. But usually, it will take a couple of cycles before you're satisfied. And once you're satisfied, only then you can continue with the building and testing. Let's take this as an example. So this is a high school in Ireland. It's actually an award-winning high school in terms of design and other things. So looking at this high school, I was thinking, what really makes it so special, right? Let's all try to think together how the process of designing the school actually happened. So the very first thing, and let's take it backward, right? Before the kids were allowed to go to the school, everything was tested. The fire alarms, the lights, everything was tested to make sure that it's safe, it's functional, it's working. And before everything was tested, everything was built. When the kids went to school, there were no blocks everywhere, there were no construction happening here and there. So everything was ready, everything was built before the school was actually, before it started and the kids started to go to that school. And before building it, there was some sort of design. The design is quite essential in this example because design is what puts this window in this place and not that place. You can't just say, I want to design a window. Where do you want to be? How do you want the framing, right? You can't just say, I just want a light. What kind of light do you want? How strong do you want the light, right? What kind of colors? Because all of these kind of things are just small details, right? And they might not really mean anything alone, but once you put all of these details together, they make an experience. And definitely before the design, there was some sort of research. Whoever was responsible for the school, and because it's an award-winning school, I can imagine that whoever was responsible had to really think, what kind of school do we want to build? Elementary school, secondary school, or both? Do you want it as sports school or academy school? Do you want it for boys, for girls, or both? Do you want it for 100 people or 1,000 people? All of these things are taken into consideration and they determine the design process that will then be built and then will be tested and then the school will be good to go. And that's not enough, right? Because the research did not just stop there. Whoever was responsible for that also had to think, not just what school do we want to build, but also what sort of ethos do we want, right? What kind of personality do we want to give to that school? How do you want the kids to feel about the building, about the school, about education? So you can really tell that it's a vision, right? It's building a vision for your product, and you can actually define this a product, because everything that you build is a product at the end. It's building a vision. It's actually researching what people want, what you're trying to solve, what kind of experience you're trying to give them, and what kind of emotions you want to generate throughout this experience. So as I said, UX is a process, but it's definitely a continuous one. So this is, again, the standard design process. And in an ideal world, and especially in the UX world, this is not how it happens. Usually it happens as an iterative, continuous cycle. And if you're an app developer, or if you have a SaaS software, you probably live in this world. Continuous research, continuous improvements. You have these cycles that are non-stop to continue on developing your software to make it better, but to also add new features that you come up with from your research phase, right? And taking it to next level, and this is something that we're going to be discussing later on, which is agile, but I'm not going to be discussing it much today at all. But in UX, agile is vital. Who knows agile? Yeah? Cool. So agile basically is the opposite of waterfall. We don't want to just research, design, build, test, and that's it. Because let's say you want to apply the waterfall. By waterfall, I mean going through these steps as a linear process and not having iterative cycles or sprints, and that's it. Because let's say I'm about to build a product, right? And it's waterfall. The first 3 months we're going to do testing or research, the first research. Then the second 3 months we're going to do design, then development, then testing. What happens if after 3 months, when we just started the design phase, a new boss came and he said, okay, we're changing the whole thing. You research in 3 months actually went without any benefit. Let's say in the development phase, some other competitor came up with that functionality that you're building, and now there's no point of you launching your product. So all of these things will not play in your favor if you're applying waterfall. So that's why you apply agile to have continuous, and it doesn't have to be 12 months here, by the way. It can be 3 months, it can be 4 sprints in a month. So this is a whole different topic, we'll talk about it later, but I just wanted to say that whatever you're doing in terms of research, whatever you're actually doing, it has to be continuous and it's non-stop, right? So the magic benefits of the UX design process. First of all, vision is clear. You're a developer of this app, you know what I'm talking about when I talk about this. You're the designer, you're also on the same page. You're a stakeholder, you know about our plan and you're involved throughout the process. So it's clear for everyone. The product is visualized in high fidelity, and it's quite important because it's way cheaper for you to visualize your product and sit with your customers and stakeholders and talk about it now during the design process. Way cheaper before you go to the high development, high cost development process. The process has a natural structure, and from an out of experience, I've been in the web development industry for years now. I've worked with clients from all over the globe, and they all have one thing in common. They have a couple of things in common. One of them, they all like to be involved, right? They all like a structure. They don't like being left in the dark. Don't tell me you're going to build me something, then disappear and come back with a solution. Because especially in software, software is invisible until it's produced, right? Because Michael might be building a software, an app for managing the students' social life, right? I just said that, and each one of you might be thinking about that in a different way. So when you have a structure, when you have visualization, high fidelity prototypes, you have all of these kind of things, everyone's like. And finally, ideas can be iterated cheaply, and that's exactly what I meant. It makes everyone aligned, it makes your thinking and your goals aligned, and you can iterate throughout the process without having to spend so much. This is actually quite interesting because every time I mention UX to someone, or we talk about UX design, they often think it's that person who designed something. And I'm sure now all of you know that UX designers are not graphic designers or web developers. It's a whole different discipline. But what would be the main difference between both, between UX designers and UI designers? Any guesses? What's the, okay, let's start with UI designers. What do they do? UI designers. UI is a user interface. So UI is a user interface design. Any guesses? Sorry? Design interface, true. Exactly. A UX designer actually designed the experience. So if you want to look at both, UI designers, they design the layout, the visual design, the typography, they design the branding, all of these things that are visual. And it's quite important, don't get me wrong. You might have a very interesting application. The experience is great, but it's not quite visual. It still works, but not the best. But you also need these two teams working in parallel. Because if you build a very visual, appealing software, but you don't have a user experience designer to do the usability testing, the user research, the user stories, the personas, your app won't be successful. But also, if you have all of that and your app or software or website doesn't really look great, and we know that first impressions last, it might struggle a little bit. So these two UI designers and UX designers, they have to work in parallel. And it's quite important for you to know the difference. And you can be both, by the way. You can be a UI and a UX designer, and that makes it even better because you're involved with the whole process. That's, I guess, the last part before we take a quick quiz together. We're gonna go over the design process. So we're gonna be having sessions every 2 weeks, because every week we have a session from technical to business, to technical to business. So every 2 weeks we have a business session, and we're gonna be going over the UX design process, how you can apply UX, how you can actually do the research in the first place, what kind of tools and methods that you can apply. And I'm going to be quickly going over them now so that you can get a taste of what's coming soon. So one of the things that UX designers do are user surveys. That's not an ad, by the way. Okay. So user surveys, right? You go, you get users in the same place, or you go out and you collect feedback and data from users. Also, you have usability tests. Usability tests is actually my favorite. You have a prototype, or you have an actual app, and you sit with the user and you watch them using that app or website. And then you spectate, right? You start noticing some things that you should be considering while you're doing this research with the user. And we're going to be talking about what kind of things you should be asking the user, what kind of things you should have them do, what kind of things you should focus on while they're using your app software. Because that's the best feedback you're going to get from them. And if you do that during the design phase, that's perfect. Because you can get that feedback, go back to the design team, and iterate on your software. However, if you have a built app, it's already there, and you get this feedback, it's going to be way, way more expensive for you to do these adjustments. We also do depth interviews, and we're going to be going over some scripts, how you can ask the right questions, because asking the right questions means you're building the right product. We're also going to be discussing affinity diagrams, and I'm not sure why there's no photo there, but it's basically sticky notes all over the place, and you might have seen some photos here or there of people just standing together with a whiteboard, just placing sticky notes in random places. We're going to be talking about what are affinity diagrams and how you can use them to structure your ideas, how to come up with a plan from these bunch of sticky notes. Also, IA, who knows what IA actually means or stands for? IA. Information.
Information architecture?
Sorry?
Information architecture?
Yep, information architecture. Would you like to tell us? No?
I'm not confident enough to, in terms of its definition.
Yeah, it's fine. So information architecture, the best way to explain it, any of the websites that you might have visited, the way the pages, it's basically the structure of the website, right? And how the pages are connected to each other, how the hierarchy of the website or the app or whatever you're trying to build, and what's the journey from going from this point to that point, right? And IA goes hand in hand with user flows and customer journey maps. All of these main things you're going to be learning about during this program. How to build effective user flows, how to actually make sure that whoever enters your website or app or whatever, they will leave with their goals achieved, right? In the fastest way possible, in the best way possible, and while generating positive emotions, because that's what's the most important. Wireframing and prototyping, of course, that's the fun part, because research is probably not really that fun for everyone, even though it's essential, and it's 50%, if not more, as a theory process. But wireframing and prototyping, we're going to be also talking about how to create a wireframe for your product or service. And you can actually create a wireframe for your service as well. We're going to be going over that later, and how you can turn these wireframes into prototypes before you get into the development process. And last but not least, A/B testing. Who knows what A/B testing is? A/B testing.
So you have different groups of users which you test to set up each of the side and then after you get some feedback from it, you'll understand more about if it was successful.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So basically, what was your name, sorry?
Sorry?
What's your name?
Albi?
Albi?
B.
Albi.
Yeah.
Albi. So what Albi just said, you bring two user groups, it can be just two users, and you have them try two different things, and then you split it out, and then you determine which one is better. And usually when it comes to websites, and because I have an agency that build websites, and we do this quite often, we do A/B testing with clients in which they are keen on having this certain design, and we suggest that they should go with that design. So what do we do at the end? We just set a time frame for that design to be online. We track the results, what's the conversion rates, and then we switch it with the other design and we do the same. And then at the end, we see which one performed better and we stick with that thing. So that's A/B testing, basically. If you're stuck with two options after the research phase, you can do that in addition to other methods in order to select one of them. So to conclude, right? I try to make this as easy to digest as possible. We did not want to get into technical details now. I want you to know why user experience matters, why you should get into it, why you should consider it every time. So if there are a couple of points I want you to take away from this presentation, there will be the following. User experience is about people, right? And the user is always right. Not 99%, 100% of the time. You will need to research enough users for you to get enough data to be confident enough about your design that will be converted into development, and then you will test it, and then you will track the results. So it's always about people. So you should be designing for people. You should not be designing for yourself. And that's something back in 2015 when I first started Yota, I was doing with my team. And that justifies why we were not making that effective or high conversion websites at that time. Because we were just building websites that were nice and the client liked. That's pretty much it. As long as they like it, and it's nice, and we can put it on our portfolio, that's all you want. But that's actually not true. You should always be building your software based on users. The second thing would be usability first, then design, right? Design is important. And again, I don't want to underestimate design. And by design, I mean user interface design, of course. It's quite important. But if design is there and it's not usable, then you should reconsider how good your design or how effective your design is. So always focus on usability, make your software easy to use, and then see how you can make it more appealing for users. Draw on the familiar. Don't reinvent the wheel. There are some certain things that we do without thinking about, right? If you want to, let's say, take a screenshot. I believe most of you now don't even think about like the clicks, right? Just know that whenever you want to take a screenshot, you just do like these 2 clicks. Whenever you want to switch your phone off, right? Whenever you want to do X, Y, and Z. So if you come up with a new product that's doing the opposite thing that everyone is used to, then seriously don't expect it to succeed. And we noticed that with the BlackBerry 10, right? How they just suddenly removed the home button and expected people to like it and say, wow, this is such an innovation. Now we do have phones without a home button, but that took a couple of years for people to adjust, and you need to know that, and you need to understand people and study your target audience before you decide what features you want to add or remove. And finally, generate positive emotions while solving problems. Again, solving problems is essential. You should always think about solving problems, but you can be solving problems and giving people a hard time while they're trying to solve that problem. So think about your apps and software and products, whatever you want to call it, as an experience that you want to bring people in with a problem, but actually have them leave that experience with that problem solved, but wanting to use your product again, and they're eager to do that. I'm gonna end with that quote. thinking about design can be hard, but not thinking about it can be disastrous. And over the next few weeks and few months, we will be talking about user centricity. We will be talking about how you can actually go over the UX process with the least resources possible and end up with outcomes that are good enough to build effective software and products. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a quiz right now, and please do it from your phone or laptop. Just try to engage with us. Just like multiple choice on Kahoot, you might have used it before. 10 quick questions for us just to have a little bit of fun before we leave today. So.